On today's episode of Rock Your Retirement, we interview Chris Cooper, who's a fiduciary. In my life, I see people all the time that could benefit from a fiduciary, so I do hope that you listen to today's episode. And we have a freebie for you called 3 Reasons Why Your Parents Need a Fiduciary, and you can get it by going to rockyourretirement.com/fiduciary. Now, if you're like me, that's pretty hard to spell. So I'm going to spell that out for you. FIDUCIARY. So once again, that's rockyourretirement.com/fiduciary.
Because everybody's unique. That's the thing. It's really hard in this work is there's no two situations alike.
Talking with people about how to have a great retirement. This is the Rock Your Retirement Show. We don't talk about money, but we talk about almost everything else you need to rock your retirement. Now, here's your host, Kathy Klein.
Hi, this is Kathy, founder of Rock Your Retirement. I started this show because many baby boomers think that retirement is all about money, and it's not. Think about it. It can be very difficult to go from spending 2,000 or more hours a year doing something to 0. Oh yeah, for the first 6 months it's fun, but then you might hit a wall. Many divorces happen after retirement because the couple isn't used to spending so much time together. Depression can also set in. We want to help prevent that, and that's why I started this show. Our guest for today is Chris Cooper, and he is a passionate advocate for people trying to meet the often crushing costs of medical care. He found his passion early on while working in nursing homes and hospitals. After completing paramedic training and obtaining a nursing degree, he pursued his interest in how people could finance health care, primarily acute care. He realized that chronic long-term care leads to financial devastation for many people, especially retirees. But my Rock Your Retirement listeners know that we don't talk about money on this show, so why is Chris here? Well, he is a professional fiduciary licensed with California and a national certified guardian with the Center for Guardianship Certification. As a professional fiduciary, he works with seniors, disabled individuals, and others who can't manage their affairs on their own. He assists them with everything from day-to-day financial issues to investment and estate management. Chris is a regular guest commentator for the ABC-operated WTVG TV, Channel 13 in Toledo. He regularly appears on both local and national news shows and is quoted with newspapers and magazines nationwide. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kathy.
So I heard that you are having a book that is currently available called Elder Care Confidential. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
It is available both electronically and in paper form, and in the major publishing houses of, Barnes and Nobles and all the other kind of places like that. The book was an idea of being able to pull together my life experiences, if you will, of working with and having to take care of disabled adults. And it was to acquaint the children of the elder person. Primarily, I work with the elderly. So I'm thinking mostly from the point of view of a daughter taking care of a parent. And it's usually the daughter that's usually the one that's got the burden of it. Sons, it's like, yes, they do come step up to the plate, but it seems like the daughter is usually the one that gets the burden most of the time. And if it's not the daughter, it's going to be the daughter-in-law. So I wanted to acquaint the caregiver, if you will, be it a daughter, a daughter-in-law, or any other family member of a disabled adult, with the areas where you've got to watch out for and what you're looking for, but also to talk to them from the point of view that they are engaging in being a fiduciary. They're actually going to be legally responsible in many situations. They're going, especially if they're named as an agent under a power of attorney document, or if they're named as a successor trustee of a trust or executor under a will. These are just the same duties that I have as a professional, but as the laws in all the 50 states are, they were written primarily to be for family members to serve in these roles. But oftentimes family members are ill prepared to be in these roles because they've never done it before. So it was just sort of get them an acquaintance across 6 areas: medical, psychological, social, environmental, legal, and financial. We call it the 6-headed beast of elder care, and where the traps and problems are within those different areas, and then how you tie it all together and see it all comprehensively. Because the way our country's laid out, we have so many different specialists, but we don't have anyone that actually sees the big picture. That's where the difficulty in getting to the right professionals lies, is seeing the right picture or seeing the big picture, and not seeing it simply from one singular discipline, but from multiple disciplines all together. But one person's got to be able to see them all, and that's generally got to be the client in this case being the caregiver, and their family member who is really the direct client. But it's very, very, very challenging. So it's part of making retirement work for people, because baby boomers, a lot of them were retiring to take care of their parents. That's a lot of what they're facing. Mm-hmm.
So, Chris, this is all very complicated, and I am not able to write all this down quickly. So can you please repeat those multiple disciplines that you said earlier? I got multiple, psychological. What are the rest of them?
Medical, psychological, social, environment or environmental, legal, and financial.
And you deal with all of those when you're working as a fiduciary for your clients?
And so is any family member who is acting in the same capacity. Exactly.
Wow. I bet people don't realize that when they sign on for that, do they?
That's right. So what happens is they generally go to the approach of, I need a better doctor or a better lawyer.
Okay.
All right. In other words, somebody has to have the cure for mom. There has to be a better pill. Somebody, so they're just going multiple doctors, and they're getting multiple prescriptions, which is a problem. Okay. And or the legal point of view is, well, mom's going in a nursing home. Can't we hide the money so that we don't have to pay for it? you see, so it becomes narrowly looked at, and a lot of the time the problem's not so much in either of those areas, it's in the other 4 areas. It's like mom lives in a very bad neighborhood, or the neighborhood has deteriorated, or mom's house has stairs and mom's not able to navigate the stairs safely anymore. She has mobility challenges,
right,
or eyesight challenges, or especially people with Alzheimer's disease, they have depth perception problems, so they can't see very well.
Right.
So these are things that we don't think about because we just do it normally. We don't even think about it. Okay? Exactly. And it's like a friend of mine her father was having abdominal surgery, for cancer surgery. And I said, well, he's going to go home after the hospital. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, does he have stairs in his place? And it's like, no, fortunately he doesn't. And it's like, good, because if he had stairs, that would be horrible. He couldn't go home yet, you see, because you'd have to be strong enough to climb up and down the steps. And
right.
With abdominal surgery, that's not going to be real easy. So there's a lot of things we just don't think about because we do it normally and naturally, and now we must do this for somebody else. It's like the role reversal idea, parent and child. We're 2 adults, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a child. It's not, Mom, do what I tell you, it's not like that. Can't do it that way.
Right, but I see so many problems come up when there is a parent and multiple children. One of the children winds up in that role that you're talking about, and the other children don't agree with the decisions that they're making. Do you see that in your experience as well?
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why people come to me, all right, is to be that outside third party, the one that doesn't have an axe to grind, the one that's not a home care agency, that's not the insurance agent, that's not the stockbroker, the banker. It's someone that sees it from outside of all those things and says, wait a minute, you're getting ripped off by your broker. Wait a minute, you're the daughter that's doing the caregiving is doing something wrong. She's trying to put mom in a level of facility that's not adequate for the care needs for her.
Okay.
And we're speaking only of mom. This could be a dad. This could be brother.
Right, of course.
It could be spouse. This could be husband or wife. So and or lifetime partner, and anyone you care about. And when you step forward, it's like you have the responsibility. So it's like,
I don't have any training in these areas. So if somebody appointed me to be their, caregiver or quasi fiduciary, I wouldn't know what to do for sure.
It's baptism by fire. It's like you get thrown in the pool and you have to see whether or not you can swim. That was why I thought this was a better idea. It was like, let's put a book out there. Let's get the conversation going. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years. It's like, let's put it in a way that says, let's tell these stories. Let's let the people see the parent as an adult. Let's let them understand their family member and try to help let their lives live out in dignity and let you live out yours in peace as well. Because oftentimes it's like, it becomes this sacrifice, like the daughter or son just sacrifices themselves for caregiving, and that's not right either. There's you got to balance these two things out.
I was talking with a woman last week actually, and she works for an organization that actually does pre-death planning. And she was telling me her story at why she got into that. She was actually an administrator for, I don't know, a manufacturing company or something like that. Her mom got sick and she wound up going into the ICU. And the daughter, the woman I was talking with, said that she didn't want her mom to die alone. And so she took time off work and she didn't qualify for, I forget what it's called, but the law that we have that says you can take time off work when you have a loved one who needs your help.
Oh, yeah. Family Medical Leave Act.
Yeah. Apparently she didn't qualify for that because her mom was actually in the ICU and they said that she wasn't providing direct care, so she didn't qualify. So this woman told them that she didn't care. She was going to take time off and be with her mom anyway. And her mom died, and a week later she was fired. So, I don't know how people deal with all of these issues that you are able to deal with as a licensed fiduciary. I mean, obviously you have training in order to do that, right? So what kind of training does a licensed fiduciary have?
Well, they all come from different walks of life. It's an interesting profession in that my father was a dean of a seminary, so he taught people to become ministers, okay? Mm-hmm. And the people that were coming to graduate school to become ministers were generally in their 50s. They had already had 2 careers already, and they were now heading into a third. So he called it the third career. So the fiduciary, to me, seems like the third career. It's like there's a lot of people doing it that are in their late 50s and 60s. Actually, the California Fiduciary Bureau told us our median age is like 58.6 years of age. And yet I know plenty of them that are active in Los Angeles and Orange County and San Diego County. They're in their 70s and working. The reason is because they can and they're active, and it's a good career choice for them. And when they're ready not to do it, they just can stop. But their backgrounds are all different. Every one of them I've met, it's all been from anywhere from being a retail clothing salesman to owning businesses to being a paralegal to being in the banking industry. One lady who sold reverse mortgages, and so it was kind of an interesting happenstance. Nobody had any real specific background in it, and yet what happened is as they get into work, they all kind of become more alike, especially those that take conservatorships, or in other states they call it guardianship. When you're in under appointment as a guardian or a conservator of a person and their property, that's where a probate court has now adjudicated that someone is not capable of taking care of themselves, or they're a danger to themselves or others. And that's a very, 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 very serious thing.
Wouldn't the family usually do that?
Sometimes, and sometimes that's where the conflict is. Sometimes we've got an abuser in the family, and the parent has to be conserved. Or the abuser is a professional, such as a financial advisor. We're seeing that today in testimony on the TV all morning here with this CEO of Wells Fargo, and kept getting grilled by a Senate banking committee, which actually acted together for once. If Congress could just act that way all the time, it'd get something done. And grilled this guy because they were opening accounts in people's names using their information for no reason other than to get their app count up, as we used to say in the insurance business, okay? Just to get their number of sales up. And it's wrong. And of course, the problem is when you open accounts in people's names, it's like opening fraudulent accounts, when somebody steals your identity. It's the same problem. You got somebody used it and, to gain your credit and, other things.
Maybe those bankers need a fiduciary looking out over them.
Well, it's to the point where when somebody gets an accident settlement, when somebody wins the lottery, when somebody's ready to retire, it's like the last place they need to be is at a financial institution of any sort, because that's like going into a car dealership. Okay. Mm-hmm. You're just vulnerable to buying anything that's in front of you. Unfortunately, that's happening. I'm not saying that all the people working those places are dishonest. They're not. The problem is that they're ignorant. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know sometimes that they're doing wrong, or that it's not necessarily the best thing or in the best interest of the client. And so that's one of the challenges. And it's like, I worked in that industry for 25 years, so I appreciate the pressures that were given on the higher ups and all the other things that come from that. But also I'm saying it's like we're just now talking about this. It's been going on since when I started in 1982 in the industry. So it's like, but yet it shouldn't be something we need somebody like me to be doing, okay? Because I have other things that people need to be taken care of for.
Right. You don't just work with their finance. You work with those other 5 areas, right?
Yeah, because you have to oversee, for example, where's mom to live? Where's the parent to live? And you can't just uproot them real easily because it can harm them. How does the family get along with each other? Is there a black sheep in the family? Somebody's taking money from mom. Is there a neighbor bringing donuts over to mom and mom's a diabetic? Things like this. It's the things we don't think about, right? Because it's not the stuff we work with, okay? And so you kind of have to play. It's more paraprofessional, all right? So it's like I don't know how to practice medicine. I don't try to. I just have to know, okay, what's the conditions we're trying to manage, and then get it properly managed. Get the right doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants to work on that part. Same way with the legal areas. Get the right lawyers to do the work that's needed to get the job done. And hopefully we do it before the need of going into conservatorship or guardianship. That way things are in order and things don't go awry, and you reduce expense as well as you keep your privacy, okay? Because going to court is public.
Right.
Being like Lindsay Lohan and all these people are conserved out here, so we know how much your conservator is being paid every year, because it's in the public record and we know what she's got. And this isn't a cool way to live. Nobody wants to live in a fishbowl.
Exactly.
Right? Right. So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to preach prevention, if you will, but the problem is because we've got a lot of the problem already, that's why, unfortunately, we have the court interventions. I'm saying that people can take the lessons from those of us that have done this work and actually do some real planning, which not only involves their money or their investments or their risk management products or anything like that. It involves how do they want to live?
Right.
What's their retirement to be like? What do they want to be doing during it?
That makes total sense.
that's how you rock your retirement.
Absolutely, yes. So let me ask you a question. You talked about conservatorship and guardianships.
Yes.
Does a fiduciary do those as well, or is that done by an attorney?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They do them as they are the appointed person. They're the actual appointed guardian or the conservator. Attorneys do the essentially we call it the litigation, because you go into a probate court and you file motions, and which essentially is like a lawsuit. All right, to say this person isn't taking care of themselves or can't take care of themselves, or they're a danger to themselves or others. And then you have to put on evidence, usually, doctor statements, things like that. You don't have a jury. Or sometimes the person already knows that they're just not doing right, and they'll just say, it's okay, I want to be conserved,
Okay.
And that happens too. In other words, they're not fighting it. Their daughter might be trying to push it, or their son, but it's like they're okay if they let a professional do it, as opposed to their child for some, or whatever reason.
Way back when I was a full-time practicing financial advisor, I had a client who couldn't invest, and he had to start taking out his money because his wife had a gambling problem. And so he took out all the money, paid off her debts, and then, of course, a year later, they were back in debt again. And I had talked to him, and I told him, I said, look, she's got a problem. You're going to have to deal with this. Would that have been a time where he could have gone to court to ask for a conservatorship, or is that just...
No, that's exactly a time.
Oh, okay.
Because obviously the person was doing things against their own interest. Okay. I mean, gambling in itself is not against your own interest. It's entertainment.
Right.
But when it becomes a sickness, then that's what's wrong. And it is a sickness. It is recognized as such. And the other thing, of course, would have been for the man to gone and gotten legal help. And again, this is what's tough. People hate to go to lawyers because it costs money. In other words, they can go over to the banker and sit in the lobby and talk to the manager for free. You see what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But to go to a lawyer, it's like the meter runs, right? And so they're afraid to do that. But I'm saying, unfortunately, this is the doctor you need. In Latin American countries, we call them doctor and doctora. Doctor.
Huh.
And only in this country don't we call them that. We call them counselor.
Interesting,
right? Yeah. And so he would have had to do things such as, petitioning assets and filing, things for protections, and even having to file personal bankruptcies and other things like that. And I mean, granted, he may have done a lot better than he did, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Okay?
Right. So
the problem, of course, is there's all that guilt, right?
Right. That's the problem that most people have. They don't want to take away somebody's freedom.
Well, they're not actually, in this case here, they wouldn't be taking away their freedoms. They would have been preserving some resources so that they could have helped the person have their freedom if they could have helped them get help and gotten better.
It wound up bankrupting them, and then she passed away. So it was a pretty sad situation, but that sort of opens my eyes, because I always thought of what you do would be correlated to somebody with Alzheimer's or something like that. But it sounds like there's a lot more uses for a fiduciary than just in those specific situations. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. Some of the folks, for example, they're suffering from diseases, long-term chronic diseases that render them unable to take care of themselves. People who from birth didn't have a chance to because they were born with developmental disabilities. We call them the special needs children. And then there's varying levels of that, where now we're trying to give more of the higher able disabled people more control over their own financial destiny, as opposed to having someone else dealing it out for them. So there's a lot of different philosophies happening, and laws that have been created to make some of that happen. So there's a lot of different areas, and I'm speaking about a broad amount of things that not all the ones I do in myself, okay? I mean, I work with special needs children. I work with people with Alzheimer's disease. It's like there's people that do bankruptcy estates. There's people who do the movie stars, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
The athletes, those sort of folks. Of course, the other requirements of when you work in court appointment is can you get bonded for these levels of handling these kind of massive amounts of resources, okay? So I tend to work with middle-class people, and
Right.
middle-class people have the greatest risk of going broke in long-term care, and long-term care can occur from birth on.
Absolutely. So I have another scenario for you. Are you up for that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so let's say I'm taking care of my mom and my sister doesn't like how I'm doing it. And we are under a lot of stress because she thinks I'm taking money from mom and putting it in my own account because mom's living with me. And I'm thinking that, gosh, I need this money to take care of mom. And she doesn't like the fact that mom doesn't want to undergo, I don't know, let's say chemotherapy because she's 90 years old. And so I'm letting mom just kind of live out her life. And there's a lot of stress going on in the relationship between my sister and myself. This is made up, by the way. Would that be a good time to bring someone like you in?
It would be a place to start. The bigger issue, let's say, between the two of you, the sisters, okay, is more the domain of what we call a family therapist, marriage and family therapist, or a social worker, people that do that.
Okay.
More that specific specialty. But where I come in and is generally I'm the person that's directing you to get that service. And oftentimes it can be paid for by Medicare.
Okay.
As well as or by your own private insurance. So it's not a question of financial. This is where, again, somebody else is paying for it, use it, right? This is the problem. People hate to go to lawyers because they're paying for it. See how the difficulty is, right? That's why they hate having to hire their own home care agency because they got to pay for it themselves.
Right.
No, they want somebody else to pay for it, right?
Okay.
So here, this situation here is it's like, let's see if these family members can resolve this between themselves. Okay. One of the things could be happening here in the scenario you're presenting, okay, which is very common, is sometimes children get this feeling like, well, we shouldn't take money from mom and dad because they gave it to us so we could live, right?
Right.
They raised us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we should take them in our home and sacrifice ourselves financially to take care of them. Okay, that might happen in some families. You got to do that. But if there's means there, if mom has the ability to help to cover these costs and things, then there's nothing wrong with that. That's what she has it for.
Right, absolutely.
That's
okay.
The rainy day fund.
Right. Okay, so let's go with another scenario, Chris. So that scenario's more like a family counselor. So the other scenario would be mom's living with me. She's been living with me for 5 years. It's causing stress between my husband and myself. And my sister, who's been complaining about the way I'm treating mom, doesn't want to take mom in her house. Would that be a time to call you in?
Yes, you would do that because here, what we've got to look at is, does mom have, what is the resources mom has available to her?
Uh-huh.
And if mom has no resources, let's say mom was poor, all right, which is not uncommon with many, many, many elderly women whose husbands, worked small factories and things like that, didn't have big pensions in those days, didn't have the large disposable income, so they don't have the wealth building that other people have. Oftentimes we might see a parent like that, but so then we would say, well, what can we avail ourselves of the public sector? What's available to us under Medicaid, or Medi-Cal as we call it here in California? What's available to us from Section 8 and Housing Choice Voucher Program? What's available to us if there's veterans benefits available with, in other words, we start looking at all those financial resources that are basically available through social services. it's a hodgepodge of different services that have to be accessed.
Okay.
Sort of put a plan together. Now that's one scenario. Let's say mom has some modest means of her own. It's like, well, could mom actually afford to live in assisted living or a different place? Because her care may be becoming too difficult, maybe way too difficult to be doing in your own home. And it may be just totally unrealistic. She may need attending 24 hours a day. And that's what's causing the great amount of stress in your marriage, because it's like having a baby that never is fed, right? Whining
absolutely.
and crying when you bring them home. And it's not their fault. It's not mom's fault. This is the circumstance they've got. We hate the idea of putting them in a nursing home, okay? But sometimes getting care in the home could help, or living in a different type of home where you have the mother-in-law suite kind of thing can help. But oftentimes when couples say they want to bring one of their mothers in to come live with them and all that, it's like, that's the first question I'm going to ask them is, are you ready to sacrifice your marriage?
Right, exactly. And I see that all the time. I see lots of stress.
It's a fixation. It's a you got to do it this way and no other way to do it, kind of mentality. It's an inflexibility. Again, this is where the community social worker, the hospital social worker, nursing home social worker gets involved. As in the first scenario, the daughters had to work out their differences between them on some maybe perhaps philosophy. And also by having an outsider like myself, it would be to show them the books and records and show them, no, everything's all right. It's in good order. And, things like that. And if mom has capacity, mom can grant authority to say, okay, you can get a copy of a record. You can see what other daughter here is taking care of. You can make these things more available without having to create other problems. It's just difficult because a lot of times people don't want to reach out or involve a third party. They want to keep everybody out. They're trying to, say this is a family matter.
Right.
And this is where it's really difficult until they get in real trouble, and then somebody actually has to push the door open, if you will, from a legal perspective, Adult Protective Services, the police, the fire department, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. And all of these things are things that your book talks about, correct?
It talks about them in some generality, gives you some awarenesses, but it's also what brings you to have discussion, to talk about it,
okay.
To get you to start going. Because it's not complete by itself. The book is only meant to give you awareness. It can't answer every question. It can't possibly give you every solution because everybody's unique. That's the thing. It's really hard in this work. Is there's no two situations alike. Children would like to have, this perfect place we call Shady Acres where mom could go to live, where they take care of everything and wait on them hand and foot like a resort, like being on a cruise ship, right?
Right.
Yeah. and then they realize that, well, that's about $10,000 a month.
Right. It is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, but we could do it on a cruise ship for a week. For about
my mom says that all the time. She says, yeah, I'm just going to, when I need care, I'm just going to go on a cruise ship. And I've been on several cruises and I don't see any assisted living type activities going on cruise ship.
Oh, no. The same way with airplanes. It's like I fly on airplanes and there's more senior citizens on airplanes now than ever. Uh-huh. More walkers and canes. And I'm glad that they all have the means that they go about like that. But it's pretty difficult to fly if an emergency occurs.
Exactly.
They're going to have much more challenges.
Exactly.
It's like I'd rather them travel than not travel. I'd rather them go ahead and live their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what's really hard. We want to keep people safe, and it's like, don't do that. We'll do it for you. And then it just virtually they can't do for themselves.
This has been very eye-opening on what a fiduciary does and why you need one and when you need one. You've certainly cleared up some questions that I had. How can my listeners get in contact with you if they have additional questions?
They go to my website at www.chriscooper.com. And my toll-free number is 800-352-7674.
Can they buy your book on it?
The link will be set up. The site's going to be shown for the book and everything here as it all rolls out. The hard part was because we're having an election year, You got all the advertising all tied up with that, and so it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to roll the book out, and it's like, yeah, we'll have the link for people to be able to get it from, for Kindle or whatever reader they use, or to get it in paperback. And then also, like I said, it'll be in the stores.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. What you do is very much so needed. And to recap, fiduciaries talk about 6 things, and that's medical, psychological, social, environmental, legal, and financial. And if you want more information, you can contact Chris on his website, and we will have that information in the show notes as well. So we hope to see you next time on Rock Your Retirement.
Thanks for listening to the Rock Your Retirement Show. If you are rocking your retirement or know someone who would make a great guest on our show, please send us an email at podcast@rockyourretirement.com.